latest in local and regional news. The TV1 Midday News, Monday to Friday, live at 12 p.m. on TV1.
Good day, I'm Rex Litter with the news update. 2 people have been reportedly died in election-related violence overnight in Surinki, Enga province. This is following the declaration of the Pangu candidate, Amos Akem, yesterday afternoon in Wabeg. Supporters of the losing candidate and sitting member Tomati Kapili attacked Kaipale village in Surunki, targeting supporters of the winning candidate and killed 2 people in attacks. Provincial Police Commander of Enga, George Kakas, confirmed the incident this morning that police are left for Surunki this morning to retrieve the bodies and further investigate this violence. He says the situation remains tense. The Papua New Guinea's 2024 budget tabled in Parliament yesterday is the largest and comes without surprise, says Chief Economist with PricewaterhouseCoopers Jeremy Tope. At this morning's budget breakfast, Tope said the 2024 budget, which stands at 27 million kina, will see an increase of tax rate by 45% and inflation rate is expected to increase by 5%. Tope said this means that the government will be spending more than expected. The chief economist said this during the 2024 budget breakfast this morning in Port Moresby.
The tax revenues will have to grow at twice the rate of government expenditure. Now, this is where politics kind of intervenes. Higher tax revenues very much an incentive to spend, naturally, and so it'll be interesting to see how that gets talked about.
11 rural airstrips in Right Coast District, Midday Province, will be restored and maintained after the Right Coast District Development Authority provided funding support. Member for Right Coast, Cassie Sawang, on behalf of the people and RDDA presented a cheque of 380,000 kina to Rural Airstrip Agency yesterday. This funding assistance will support RAA to conduct survey and scoping of works, restore and maintain the deteriorating abandoned rural airstrips to meet the required safety standard for the benefit of its rural communities. Don't accept what is not acceptable and don't normalize what is not normal was the slogan of the Universal Church during the Sun Up One Time awareness campaign on the Day of Elimination of Violence Against Women, Saturday, 25th November. UN standards dictates that regardless of class, race, ethnicity, income, culture, educational level, age and religion, everyone has a right to live a life without violence. The Church clearly took the opportunity to share alternatives of violence and abuse family face, which includes the Word of God. Pastor Jonathan Pine shared the testimonies of the couples among the congregation who had come out of extreme abuse and violence relationship. He said they now live peaceful, happy lives free of violence and abuse through the Word of God.
Their past is your present. What do I mean? These people, they overcame. They are not going for it anymore. Like she said, her husband changed. Miss Kevin changed. Maybe you look at your life, at your marriage, you look at your situation, and you say, I God. The same God who changed them can change you as well.
In regional news, this week, world leaders are meeting in Dubai for the United Nations COP28 climate conference. Australia is keen to promote its progress on renewables, but the road to net zero has been full of hurdles. In some regions where critical green energy projects are slated, communities are pushing back, saying, "Not in my backyard."
Regional Victoria, fifth-generation potato farmer Joey Aganetti-Fraser has mowed a very clear message into the hill on her family farm.
We've got a right in our say in our own land, and they should hear us.
Power company AusNet plans to build transmission lines through this property and others as Australia ramps up renewable energy production.
It will completely destroy the way we farm and operate. We can't use any sort of machinery under them.
The proposed Western Renewables link will move electricity from solar and wind farms to a terminal station in Melbourne.
At the moment, we're not on track to achieve 82% renewables by 2030 across the country.
Australia is racing to get back on track. The government is expanding a taxpayer-funded scheme to subsidise and underwrite new projects. But community pushback to some of them is proving to be a significant hurdle.
If we don't get this done, then not only are our renewable energy targets at risk, but our climate change targets at risk.
AusNet admits initial consultations didn't go as planned. It's offering landholders compensation.
It can vary from 100,000 up to millions and millions.
There's no negotiation at all with AusNet or the VNI West. No amount of money and compensation would make up for it.
That leaves a stalemate.
Compulsory acquisition is a mechanism and is available. However, as I say, we're working through with landholders. We speak to them regularly.
Experts say if Australia is to reach its renewable energy targets, community support for projects like this will be critical. And for some communities, it will be a long road ahead to reach a solution.
The Secretary-General, Patricia Scotland Casey, will lead the Commonwealth delegation at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28 in Dubai, to call for accelerated action on the climate crisis in light of intensifying threats to small and vulnerable member countries. Scheduled for 30 November to 12 December 2023, the annual summit comes just months after Commonwealth Environment Ministers committed to accelerating climate action at the inaugural meeting held alongside the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. The Secretary-General, who will deliver at least 20 speeches across the summit, will urge negotiators to deliver a transformative outcome at the summit. The Nazi salute will be banned under Australian federal law as part of a broader move to crack down on symbols of the Third Reich. The announcement comes as the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met family members of those kidnapped or killed during Hamas terror attack on Israel last month, and hundreds of prominent Australians publicly denounced anti-Semitism, Islamophobia and other racism in Australia.
Conflict a world away, brought to the Parliament's doorstep.
The kidnapping of 240 people, including infants, children, women and the elderly, is a war crime.
Families of loved ones killed or kidnapped in the October 7 terror attacks in Israel, flown across the globe with a clear aim.
To get the support of the Australian people and the Australian government for Israel actions in wiping out Hamas.
And taking their message to the most powerful office in the country.
Your raising of these issues will once again make sure that it is front of mind for the Australian people.
As others sought to highlight the plight of those caught in the conflict in Gaza and calling on Australia to do more.
The Australian government must work with the United States and Israel to open up more humanitarian access.
Hundreds of prominent Australians signed a letter published in major newspapers, calling out anti-Semitism, Islamophobia and other racism, as the government took a new step against a very specific act of hatred.
We need to send a message nationwide that our country absolutely rejects all of these symbols of Nazism and the Nazi salute.
The Nazi salute, seen in protests in Melbourne earlier this year, will be banned under federal law. It's on top of existing plans to ban Nazi symbols and follow similar moves in Victoria and Tasmania.
Our legislation will mesh with the state legislation and any other states that want to bring in these bans.
We have to deal with anti-Semitism in every possible way that we can, and banning the Nazi salute is a clear way of doing that.
Government thinking's come a long way in a short time on a federal ban of the Nazi salute. Not long ago, it was arguing such offensive gestures were best controlled by the states. That it's now prepared to act itself is a recognition that such hateful acts and expressions are only on the rise. Another unwanted spillover from the Israel-Gaza war.
In sports, Papua New Guinea netball team got back on track after their loss to Tonga. The Peppers were in high spirits yesterday, following their 67-37 trouncing of Pacific Games 2019 gold medalists, Cook Islands, at the Friendship Hall in Honiara. The PNG ladies were impressive against their opponents. With heads held high, PNG ran over Cook Islands in all 4 quarters of the contest, with outstanding performances in the mid-court led by Jacqueline Laharia and the shooting circle. In this morning's match, PNG again showed too much class, hammering Vanuatu 98 goals to 13. PNG now faces Niue in its final Pool A match. The top 2 teams from Pool A and Pool B will proceed to semi-finals. Grand final is set for Saturday, December 2nd. PNG Kumul centre Zach Leibat has extended his contract with North Queensland Cowboys for 1 more year. The PNG international will be with the club until the end of 2025 season. Since joining the club in 2021, Leibat appeared in 4 games in his maiden NRL season, including a 2-try performance in the round 26 victory over Dolphins. Leibat debuted for Cowboys in round 13 against Parramatta Eels this year. The PNG international spent 2023 season on a train and replacement contract with impressive performances both in the NRL with Cowboys and with PNG Kumuls in Pacific Championships. Zach was promoted to top 30 squad. Leibat made his test debut for PNG Kumuls at the end of the Pacific Championships this year, appearing in all 3 games at the centre, including the 32-12 bowl final victory over Fiji. And that wraps up Midday's news update. Join us for more at 6 p.m.